I always thought history was set in stone. The Maya were astronomers, builders, priests of the sun and stars. Nothing more. At least, that's what we've been told. But the night I found myself in their world, I saw something no textbook could ever explain. In the sky above the jungle, lights moved with impossible precision, orbiting, circling, glowing brighter than any star. They weren't comets. They weren't myths. The Maya were launching satellites. I shouldn't have been there, and yet I was. I still carry the memory like a scar burned into my mind, the moment I realized our entire understanding of the past was wrong. They hid a truth greater than pyramids, greater than their calendar, greater than anything we dared imagine. Subscribe and listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal is the kind of truth that was never meant to be told. The first thing I remember was the suffocating heat. Thick, damp air pressed against my skin as if the jungle itself were trying to choke me. I staggered forward, my sneakers sinking into mud, and stared at the colossal stone pyramid rising from the trees. I knew it instantly, the architecture of the Maya. But the pyramid looked new, alive, its edges sharp and unweathered, as though centuries of time had been peeled away. I wasn't standing in ruins. I was standing in the past. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The jungle echoed with drums, flutes, voices chanting in a rhythm too precise to be random. Figures emerged from the trees, men and women clothed in woven tunics, their faces painted with intricate designs of red and black. They didn't scream. They didn't attack. They only watched me with calm, unreadable eyes. One of them, a tall man draped in jade ornaments, approached. He touched my shoulder, then gestured toward the pyramid. His words were ancient, but somehow I understood. You were expected. Expected? By whom? They led me through stone streets, lined with houses I had only seen in museum reconstructions. Children played in courtyards, women carried pots of water, priests in feathered cloaks passed silently. It was a city alive, breathing, thriving. But there was something wrong. I noticed it first in the tools they carried. Metal sharper than bronze, gleaming with a polish that had no place in this era. Then in the building's patterns carved into the stone that looked like circuits, not decorations. And when we reached the top of the pyramid, my stomach dropped. There, carved into the floor, was a massive circular panel made of stone, and something else, something metallic, smooth, reflective. Wires or veins of copper ran outward from its center, vanishing into the pyramid's core. The panel hummed faintly, vibrating beneath my feet. The priest with jade ornaments raised his hand. His people fell silent. Then he pointed upward. I followed his gesture, and my blood ran cold. In the night sky, a light moved, not like a star, not like a comet. It was steady, deliberate, traveling in an arc across the heavens. Then another, and another. 3 glowing objects moved in perfect sync, circling above us. I blinked, rubbing my eyes, but they were still there. Satellites. The priest leaned close, his voice low and certain. You came to see what should not be seen. Drums thundered below as the people knelt, chanting to the lights above. My heart pounded. This wasn't ritual. It wasn't myth. It was technology. But how? How could they possibly? The priest turned to me again. His eyes glowed in the torchlight, his jade ornaments clinking softly as he spoke words that froze me in place. Tonight, you will witness the launch. The priest led me down a steep stone stairway carved into the heart of the pyramid. Torches flickered along the walls, but they weren't ordinary flames. Their light had a strange bluish tint, too clean, too steady. I passed carvings that at first seemed like the familiar glyphs of Maya mythology, but when I looked closer, They weren't stories of gods or animals. They were schematics, diagrams, constellations linked to shapes that looked more like blueprints than myths. The passage opened into a vast chamber beneath the pyramid. My breath caught. It wasn't an empty hall for worship. It was a machine. Stone walls lined with copper veins pulsed faintly with energy. At the center stood a towering construct of stone and metal, its surface covered in obsidian mirrors polished to perfection. Thick cords of woven fiber, wrapped with something metallic, snaked into the structure. It hummed with a vibration so low it rattled in my bones. I whispered to myself, "This shouldn't exist here." The priest turned to me as if hearing my thoughts. "It always existed. You were never meant to know." He gestured, and 2 young acolytes brought forward a cylindrical object wrapped in woven cloth. With ceremonial precision, they unrolled it. My eyes widened. It was metal. Smooth, seamless, impossibly advanced for this era. Etched into its surface were glyphs, Maya symbols, mixed with something unfamiliar, almost alien. The priest placed a hand on it and whispered, "The heart of the sky." The cylinder was lifted carefully into the central construct. As it locked into place, the humming grew louder, resonating through the entire chamber. I backed away, heart racing. Then I saw them. Along the walls of the chamber, hidden behind panels, were other objects, large, metallic, and terrifyingly familiar. Rocket stages. Not modern, not exactly, but something crude yet advanced, like an echo of technology centuries ahead of its time. I stumbled forward, pressing my hand against one of them. It was cold, solid, real. Not a carving, not a trick. The priest's voice filled the chamber. "Tonight, the gods of the sky will see us again." I wanted to scream, to ask how this was possible, but before I could, a deep rumble shook the chamber. The cylinder in the center glowed faintly, light spreading along the copper veins in the walls. The acolytes chanted, their voices echoing like static through the chamber. Then, above us, a section of the ceiling slid open. I craned my neck upward. The night sky appeared, framed by stone. The stars were brilliant, and among them, those same moving lights glimmered. Satellites, circling in perfect silence. The priest leaned close to me, his jade ornaments clicking softly. You wonder how. You think this is not of man. But it is, given to us, and guarded by us. Until now. A new sound pierced the chamber mechanical, grinding, rising in pitch. The massive construct shifted, aligning itself with the opening above. Stone and metal moved together with impossible precision, revealing a launch platform hidden inside the pyramid. And at its center stood a rocket, primitive and elegant all at once, stone fused with metal, glyphs glowing faintly across its surface. My knees buckled. This wasn't possible. Not here. Not now. The priest placed his hand firmly on my shoulder. His eyes glinted with firelight as he whispered the words that sealed my fate. You will see the gods ascend tonight. The air in the chamber grew electric, the low hum now a roar that vibrated through my ribs. The acolytes moved in perfect unison, carrying baskets of crushed crystals that shimmered like liquid fire. They poured them into grooves carved into the floor, and the moment the fragments touched the channels, they ignited not with flame, but with a glowing current of blue light that raced toward the central rocket. The rocket itself pulsed, glyphs etched along its body glowing brighter as though alive. Stone and metal, fire and light, all fused into something that should never have existed in this time. Hundreds of people gathered around the base of the pyramid, their chants rising into the night sky. From my vantage point inside the chamber, I could see them through the wide opening above, their faces painted in red and gold, their eyes reflecting the fiery glow. The priest raised his arms, and silence fell. Then he shouted a single word in Maya 1 that cut through the silence like a blade. "Ascend!" The platform trembled violently. Sparks erupted from the rocket's base, blinding against the darkness. A shockwave tore through the chamber, knocking me backward against the wall. My ears rang, my chest heaved, but through the smoke and light I saw it, flames, white-hot, blasting downward. The ground shook as though the earth itself rebelled. The rocket lifted. For a heartbeat, I thought it would collapse, crumble into ruin. But no, the impossible happened. The massive construct rose smoothly into the night, its trail of fire illuminating the jungle for miles. The people below cried out, not in fear, but in triumph, their chants swelling like thunder. I stumbled to my feet, clutching the stone wall for balance. My mind screamed, "This can't be real. This shouldn't be happening." But my eyes betrayed me. I watched the rocket pierce the clouds, a burning spear vanishing into the heavens. The priest turned to me, his face calm, his jade ornaments clinking softly. "Do you believe now?" I shook my head, unable to speak. But then the sky itself answered. Far above, in the endless black, one of the moving lights flared brighter. For a moment I thought it was just another star. Then I saw it shift, aligning itself with the rocket's trajectory. A mechanical gleam flickered as panels unfolded. A satellite, no question. I recognized the shape, the glint of solar wings. The rocket connected. There was no explosion, no failure. The two merged seamlessly, light flaring as though a circuit had closed. I gasped, my legs giving way. My entire life I had believed the Maya studied the stars, nothing more. But here, before my eyes, they weren't just observing the heavens. They were building them. The crowd roared, drums thundered, and in the sky, the satellite began to move. Slowly at first, then with incredible precision, it settled into orbit, one more glowing point among the stars. The priest leaned close, his whisper colder than the night air. "This is not the first, and it will not be the last." My skin crawled, because in that moment I realized the horrifying truth. I hadn't just stumbled into the past. I had stumbled into a program, a network centuries older than we ever imagined. And whatever knowledge had given them this power, it wasn't gone. It was waiting. The crowd outside was still chanting, their voices shaking the jungle, but the priest turned away from the spectacle in the sky. He motioned for me to follow. My knees were weak, my ears still ringing from the launch, yet I stumbled after him, unable to resist. We descended into a deeper corridor beneath the pyramid. This was no ceremonial passage. The walls were smooth, too precise, the angles too sharp. Torchlight flickered across embedded panels of polished obsidian. But these weren't decoration. They reflected the light like glass-like screens. The priest whispered, "Few are allowed here. You will understand why." The stairway opened into a massive underground hall. My breath caught in my throat. This was no temple. It was a command center. Dozens of stone thrones lined the edges of the chamber, but each throne was outfitted with metallic frames, wires of copper and crystal connecting to the ceiling. Figures sat motionless in some of them, priests or perhaps operators. Eyes closed, heads tilted back. A faint hum surrounded them, and above their heads hovered ghostly images, projections of the sky, satellites moving in delicate arcs. I froze. They weren't worshiping the stars. They were monitoring them. The priest guided me closer to the center. There, a huge stone table stood, its surface smooth as glass, and on it, etched with light itself, was an image of the earth. Not crude, not symbolic. A real-time projection, glowing with networks of orbiting dots, each one a satellite, each one placed with perfect precision. I whispered, my voice trembling. This is a control system. The priest's eyes glinted. Our ancestors were given the knowledge. We protect it. We expand it. We ascend with it. I reached out and touched the glowing map. It rippled under my fingers like water. Data flowed across the surface numbers, glyphs, coordinates. Impossible for this age. My head spun, and then I saw something that made my blood run cold. One of the dots wasn't circling the earth. It was moving downward, toward us. The priest placed his hand over mine. Steady. Calm. Do not fear. It is only returning. They come back when needed. My stomach lurched. They come back? You're telling me? Before I could finish, a deep vibration shook the hall. The projection shimmered. On the far wall, a section of stone slid aside with a grinding roar, revealing a cavern beyond. Inside, resting in the shadows, were capsules. Dozens of them. Some cracked, some glowing faintly with inner light. And inside the transparent surfaces, I saw people. Or at least, they had been people once. Their faces were distorted, their bodies suspended in liquid, their skin etched with the same glowing glyphs as the satellites. Some looked as though they had been here for centuries, perfectly preserved. Others twitched, their eyes darting beneath closed lids. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. What are they? The priest's expression didn't change. His voice was calm, almost reverent. They are the keepers, the conduits. Their minds are bound to the sky. I shook my head violently. No, this is control. You're enslaving them. His eyes burned with a fire I couldn't name. Without sacrifice, the heavens fall silent. The hum of the hall grew louder, oppressive. The projections above flickered, aligning into sharper formations. The satellites shifted in orbit, responding instantly. My pulse hammered. This wasn't just observation, this was command. And then, one of the figures in a capsule opened its eyes. They glowed with the same cold light as the satellites above. The man in the capsule stared at me, with eyes that glowed like frozen fire. My breath caught. His lips moved, but no sound came. Instead, his words arrived directly in my head, like a thought that wasn't mine. You shouldn't be here. I stumbled back, slamming against the stone table, the map of Earth rippling under my hands. The priest didn't flinch. He only watched, his calm expression more terrifying than rage. You see now, he said softly. The sky is not worship, it is communion. The glowing-eyed figure's voice still pressed against my skull. Leave, before they claim you too. I pressed my palms against my ears, as if that could block him out, but it didn't. His voice was inside me. The priest raised his jade staff and touched the capsule. The glow in the man's eyes dimmed, and his head slumped forward. Do not listen, the priest whispered to me. They are bound. They resist their duty. But we know better. My pulse thundered. This isn't Mayan knowledge. This came from somewhere else. The priest turned his gaze toward the ceiling projection, where satellites glimmered like a necklace of stars. His voice grew solemn. Long ago, the lords of the sky descended. They brought the fire, the metal, the crystal. They demanded only one thing in return, that we continue their work. I swallowed hard. So you're telling me these aren't yours? They were given to you. He nodded slowly. Knowledge is a gift and a burden. We carry it. The floor beneath us shuddered. A ripple of blue light spread across the chamber, as if the pyramid itself had exhaled. The projection above shifted, zooming outward until I saw not just Earth, but the stars beyond. Points of light stretched into lines, orbits branching outward like a spider's web. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just Earth. There was a whole network, dozens, hundreds of satellites. Not all were above our planet. Some stretched far beyond, toward the void. The priest's eyes reflected the web of lights. "We are not alone. We have never been alone." I couldn't breathe. I whispered, "You're building an interstellar system." He smiled faintly. "We are only continuing it." The words sank in like stones. This wasn't the beginning. It was maintenance, continuation. Someone else had built it first. The Maya had been chosen to tend it, like gardeners of a celestial machine. Then, one of the acolytes approached, clutching a bundle of woven cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a small object, smooth, metallic, with faint glyphs pulsing across its surface. He handed it to the priest, who turned and placed it in my hands. The object was warm, vibrating faintly, as though alive. "That," he said, "is a key." I stared at it, my voice shaking. "A key to what?" His eyes locked on mine. "To you." Before I could respond, the capsule nearest to me shuddered violently. The figure inside thrashed, his glowing eyes snapping open again. His voice screamed in my head, urgent, desperate. "Run! Before you're bound to the sky like us." The projection overhead flickered, every satellite orbit stuttering in response. Sparks cascaded from the copper veins in the walls. The hall shook, dust falling like rain. The priest's calm mask cracked for the first time. "Take him away!" he barked. Hand seized my arms from behind, acolytes dragging me toward the darkness. My fingers clenched the warm, pulsing key. My heart pounded, and all I could think was, what have I just stepped into? The acolytes dragged me down another passage, their grip like iron, their faces expressionless. The pulsing key still trembled in my hand, hidden beneath my sleeve. My mind reeled with the echo of the voice in my skull. "Run before you're bound to the sky." I was shoved into a narrow chamber, its walls carved with endless glyphs. At the center stood a slab of polished stone, outfitted with copper restraints. The air hummed with energy, heavy and suffocating. I realized with a jolt, it wasn't an altar. It was a chair meant for me. "No," I whispered, backing away. The priest entered behind me, his jade ornaments clinking softly. His calm eyes burned with fanatic devotion. "The heavens chose you. You witnessed what few outsiders ever see. That is not chance, it is design." I shook my head violently. "I'm not part of this." His voice cut sharp. "You already are." The acolytes forced me toward the slab. I struggled, kicking, but their grip tightened. They pinned me down as the copper restraints clamped across my wrists and ankles. The stone felt alive, vibrating with an alien rhythm that matched the frantic beating of my heart. The priest raised the staff and touched it to my chest. The key hidden in my palm flared in response, sending a jolt of energy through me. Sparks exploded along the restraints, causing the acolytes to recoil in shock. For a brief second, I was free. I bolted. The corridors twisted endlessly, torches casting jagged shadows against the walls. Behind me, shouts echoed, footsteps pounding like drums of war. The pyramid itself seemed to tremble, its hidden machines roaring to life as alarms hummed in the stone. I turned a corner and stumbled into another vast chamber. My breath caught. It was filled with rockets. Dozens of them, in various stages of construction stone, copper, obsidian, all fused together in impossible harmony. Workers moved silently, adjusting wires, polishing surfaces, whispering chants that sounded more like equations than prayers. The air reeked of burning resin and hot metal. They saw me. A chorus of voices rose, and dozens of blank-eyed workers began advancing, their steps unnervingly synchronized. My stomach dropped. They weren't ordinary men anymore. Their eyes glowed faintly, just like the figure in the capsule. I ran. Up stairways, through twisting passages, every breath searing my lungs. The pyramid groaned around me, alive with fury. Somewhere above, I heard the booming thunder of drums, the chants of thousands. Another launch was coming. I burst into the night air at the pyramid's edge, my chest heaving. The city sprawled before me, glowing with torchlight. And in the plaza below, I saw the people gathering again, their faces turned skyward, waiting for the heavens to answer. A deep rumble shook the ground. The next rocket was being prepared. The priest's voice echoed behind me. "You cannot run from the sky." I turned. He stood at the top of the stairs, his staff raised high, his silhouette framed by the stars. Behind him, acolytes spilled into the night like shadows, their eyes glinting. The key in my hand pulsed violently, as if urging me onward. My blood surged with adrenaline. I sprinted down the pyramid steps, weaving through the gathering crowd, shoving bodies aside. Shouts rose behind me, a tidal wave of voices screaming in unison. The jungle loomed ahead, dark and endless. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know if I could escape. But I knew one thing. If they bound me to their network, I would never be myself again. As I crashed into the tree line, branches tearing at my arms, the ground quaked. A blast of light illuminated the night sky. Another rocket tore free from the pyramid, its roar deafening, its flame scorching the heavens. I glanced back once, just once. The city burned with brilliance, the pyramid crowned in fire. Above, the satellites shifted again, aligning into new patterns, responding to the launch. And then I disappeared into the jungle's shadows, clutching the key that refused to stop glowing. I tore through the jungle until my legs gave out, collapsing into the roots of a massive ceiba tree. My chest heaved, lungs burning, ears still filled with the roar of the rocket that had just split the heavens. The pulsing key in my hand glowed faintly, its warmth seeping into my skin. Then, light. Not the torchlight of the Maya, not the glow of satellites above, but a blinding flash that swallowed me whole. The jungle vanished. The drums, the chants, the rockets, all dissolved into silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on asphalt. My ears rang with the sound of cars rushing past, horns blaring. Neon lights shimmered overhead, advertisements screaming from glass skyscrapers. The air smelled of gasoline, not resin. I was back in my time. I stumbled to my feet, dizzy, disoriented. People passed me without a glance, their faces illuminated by the glow of their phones. For a heartbeat, I thought maybe it had been a hallucination, a fever dream born of exhaustion. But then I felt it, the key, still clutched in my hand, warm and alive. I opened my palm. The object pulsed with the same light I'd seen in the pyramid. Etched across its surface were glyphs, glowing faintly before fading into silence. My heart lurched. It was real. I looked up instinctively, my eyes drawn to the night sky. Stars glittered above, but among them were the satellites I knew. Modern ones, orbiting silently, launched by agencies and corporations. I traced their familiar patterns, relief washing through me until I saw it. One point of light, brighter than the rest, it shimmered strangely, pulsing with a rhythm that made my stomach knot. And etched faintly across its surface, reflecting the moonlight, was a symbol I recognized instantly. A Mayan glyph. My mouth went dry. They were still up there. Their network hadn't vanished with time. It had survived, hidden in plain sight, orbiting above us for centuries, woven seamlessly into our own. I whispered to myself, voice trembling. They never stopped. As if in answer, the key in my hand flared brighter. My skin burned, and I dropped it onto the pavement. But when it hit the ground, it didn't bounce. It sank. The concrete rippled like water, swallowing it whole. I staggered back, breath ragged, People around me walked on, oblivious. Not a single one reacted. They couldn't see it. They couldn't hear the faint hum still echoing in my bones. And then I felt it. A heat crawling up my wrist. I yanked back my sleeve and froze. A mark glowed faintly on my skin. A glyph, carved not by blade, but by light itself, pulsing in rhythm with the satellites above. My knees went weak. The voice from the capsule returned, whispering in my skull, "You are one of us now." I collapsed against a street lamp, eyes fixed on the sky. The bright satellite pulsed again, as if answering me, as if watching. I thought escaping the pyramid meant freedom. But standing there, branded by their light, I realized the truth. I hadn't escaped. I had been chosen.